Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Devine, and this is Leadership Impact. Last session, we talked about employee engagement, specifically Gallup's engagement survey and the questions that they include in their engagement survey that explores how your team is doing and are they being engaged in the way that actually helps them. And so we explored that survey and the impacts that that can have on their teams. This week, I want to do the opposite. What are the behaviors or what are the practices that managers can get into that actually disengage people, that actually cause greater problems and encourage your employees to choose to leave rather than stay with you and grow with the company? So this week, we're going to explore the leadership practices to avoid, or the bad leadership habits. There are 7 that I want to talk about today. The first bad habit, poor leadership practice, is focusing solely on the weaknesses. Let's dig into this. Often, as leaders, we want to be making improvements to the organization, and we want to make sure that our processes are running smoothly, that things are getting solved, and we're moving forward and creating a better working environment. And so we tend to focus, or we can focus, on the areas that are not working as well and spend all our time focusing on those things. What are the problems? What's not working? How is it not working? Why is it not working? Who is not working? And looking at all the things that are not functioning correctly and put all our attention on that. And I want to be clear, you have to fix problems as they come up. You have to address issues as they come up. The difference is only focusing on those weaknesses and never drawing attention to things that the employees are doing well, things that you appreciate, things where they've accomplished something, and never saying thank you to them. It's important as a manager that you are including all aspects of the employee to encourage them as they are working through difficult areas. And maybe they have problems, and maybe there's a lot of things you need to sort on. And at the same time, look at the areas that they can improve and you can get better at. The second area that you want to be careful of is neglecting professional development. This would be giving opportunities to improve. This would be giving additional training opportunities, exploring different aspects of the organization, providing connections to different people in the company, but focusing only on the job that the employees are doing right now, as though the employees will only ever be doing the work that they are doing right now. Again, sure, you've got a work program you need to complete, you've got a product you need to get out the door, you've got tasks that need to be finished. Absolutely, you need to be focusing on these things. But avoiding opportunities to allow your employees to learn a new skill or see a different part of the organization means that they are not going to be ever expanding beyond that role. And this is actually a demotivator for many employees, to the point where if you never give them a chance to try something new, then they may start looking at opportunities outside of your group, outside of the company, that will allow them that opportunity to grow and expand in areas. Because frankly, you're never always going to have the same people working for you, and they're not always going to be working in the same roles. So you can either take the time and give them opportunities to learn, which will keep them engaged, keep them interesting, make them feel like you actually care about them and are actually interested in seeing them be a productive member of your team, knowing that at some point they will move on. Or you could neglect doing that and actively disengage your employees, forcing them to either not feel like you care or will actively look for other opportunities. A third area that you want to avoid if you're in a leadership role is being unapproachable. I'll give you an example. I worked for one a company one time, and I had to speak to this one manager. I went into her office, and she had set up books on the chair where anyone coming into her office would normally sit. She'd set her books and binders on that chair deliberately to prevent anyone from sitting down and having a conversation with her, which made it a really awkward conversation. I actually moved the books off the desk or off the chair so that I could sit down and have an actual conversation with her. But this manager was set on doing her own work and didn't want to have conversations with other people. And so she created an environment that made it very difficult. I'm not sure he's saying that you necessarily are doing, something as overt as that, but if you're creating situations where your employees don't feel comfortable coming to you, don't feel like they can come to you. Maybe they don't have access to you. Maybe they can't get any time in your calendar. Maybe you are not returning their calls. This will create a situation where your employees will learn. You're teaching your employees. They will learn that they shouldn't come to you, and so they won't. The drawback to this is they won't feel like they can communicate with you. But the bigger issue is that they won't feel like you are available when they have problems. And so if issues come up, mistakes happen, and so forth, you may never hear about them. And you may not be able to help them, and you may not be able to address those issues simply because you've created this unassailable wall for people to come in and encounter with you. What you want to do instead is you want to have lines of communication available to them. Sure, you may need to block your time for certain tasks and certain meetings and where you need to focus on that. You also need to block time and create ways for your employees to reach you. Because when they feel like they can connect, when they feel like they can actually get information from you, get feedback from you, then that's going to create a cycle where they will feel like they have a means to solve problems together. So if you're creating an environment where you're being unapproachable, that's going to create some problems. Number 4, and this is somewhat related, is being uninvolved in the work. And I recognize, as a manager, you are in a leadership role, you are in a supervisory role, you are not actually doing the work, your employees are doing the work, they've got tasks they need to accomplish. And so you need to step above the tactical level work and be thinking more broadly and thinking more strategically about what's happening. That's obviously a natural aspect to leadership. And as you go in the organization, that break from tasks to strategy becomes even greater. And yet there is a fine balance between having that distinction and being uninvolved in the work. Being uninvolved in the work is where you're so removed that you don't even know what tasks are being completed, that you don't even understand the aspects of the work that's being done. And so when issues come up and employees come to you with problems, you don't have any perspective on how to solve them. Now, you may not know the technical details, and there may be ways that you can interact with other employees to find the correct answers and to work through the issues. But if you don't even have a sense as to how this work is even being done, or where the resources are happening, or how the work flows between the different areas, then that creates, again, a barrier, similar to the last point, but creates this barrier where the employees learn that you're not the person to go to for help. And so they won't come to you for help. And when issues come up, mistakes are made, problems happen, you won't hear about them. And so you will not be able to help support them, help them through the issues, and they will feel like this manager doesn't care. This manager doesn't see me, they don't think about my issues, and they're not going to feel supported. Number 5. Being too engaged. So this is the opposite problem. Being too engaged, micromanaging your employees' work. This is where, as a manager, you're going in and basically over their shoulder, directing all of their tasks, that every single thing that they do, every email they send out, you are having to proofread. Every piece of work they're doing, you're needing to have your fingerprints on it. You're needing to look it over and make sure it's all correct. And directing every step of the way. When you're in that space where you are so involved in every aspect of the employee's work, you're creating two problems. One is you're too tied up in the tactical work. You're too tied up in the tasks. And as a leader, you need to be stepping above the work enough so that you can see the issues that may be coming, see the broader aspects of the whole work program so that you can manage resources and anticipate problems. If you're too focused on the day-to-day and too focused in the weeds of the tasks that your employees are working on, you're not going to have perspective. And thus, you're going to be constantly having to deal with issues that are coming to you left, right, and center, and you can't prepare for them. So that's a bigger problem. But the more direct problem with your employees is when you're micromanaging, you're not giving them autonomy. You're not giving them the ability to learn how to do a task, possibly make some mistakes along the way as they develop skills and develop knowledge in areas. You're basically saying, employee, you're not competent and I'm not giving you any room to move. And so they will disengage from the work. They will think to themselves, why bother? Why come up with a creative solution? Why try something new when my boss is just going to come in and tell me to do this thing anyway? I'm going to turn off my brain and I'm just going to keep doing the work that they tell me to do. And I'm not going to add anything more to it. You end up getting a lower productivity because your employees have disengaged. Plus, you piss them off. Nobody likes a micromanager. It just is annoying. And you don't want to actively disengage your employees just simply by showing up too much. So you want to strike a right balance between being too involved and being too disengaged so that the employees know, okay, they're familiar enough with the work, but they're not in my business and how can I get my work done? This creates, if you can get that balance right, then the employees will know they can come to you if they have an issue, but they won't feel like you're too heavy-handed in what they're doing. Number 5, being pessimistic. As much as we want to just focus on the work and get the work done, ultimately we're still emotional beings, and people respond to the emotions of those around them, no more so than their boss. Gallup did a study of all these workplaces, and they found that outside of the immediate family, the most important relationship is between an employee and their manager. And that the impact of that relationship can either make the employee's day or ruin their day if that's not a healthy relationship. Employees are very conscious of how you show up as their leader. What is your mood? What are the sorts of things that you're paying attention to? Because they're trying to get the cues as to what should they be working on? What are the important things that do they need to be considering? And your emotional state, how you project your emotion into the conversations you have, into the meetings that you have, can really affect the tone of the team and how emotionally safe they feel in any moment. And if you're showing up to work in a pessimistic mood, this is bad, this is terrible, I'm in a rotten mood, things are not going well, and this angry or down, frustrated energy, and that's how you're showing up time and time again, and you're focused on the negative aspects, this is going to impact your team. They're going to feel it. They're going to feel like, is it their fault? Should they be doing something different? Or just simply, they will be under this, cone of stress that they won't have a chance to breathe. They won't have a chance to relax because the manager is in a bad mood. Now, it's not to say that you can't be in a situation where you're dealing with a difficult issue and, admit that you're having difficulty with a particular issue. Absolutely. We ourselves as leaders, we are also human and we need to be mindful of how we show up. But bring all of the emotions to the table. Allow yourself to bring in joy. Allow yourself to bring in calm. Allow yourself to bring in curiosity. These other aspects allow your employees to feel that, hey, there's more going on here. I can now either relax into a moment or feel like I can ask questions. I can feel like I can move forward and not always be feeling like I'm hunkering down because my boss is showing up in a bad mood. So if you are pessimistic all the time, that's going to bring your team down. Recognize how your emotions show up and adjust accordingly. The final area I want to talk about is using passive-aggressive language. So this is where you are not directly addressing an issue, but you are essentially hinting that there is something that should be done, it's not being done. Or someone should be showing up a certain way, but they're not showing up a certain way. But you're not actually telling them directly. You're not providing them with direct feedback. Or maybe this is language that you're sharing with other people and not with the people that need to hear that feedback. Sometimes this is presented in a jokey kind of way as things would be going better if, somebody did their job better. This sort of suggestion that a behavior could be different or might be different, but you're not actually addressing this. This kind of language is problematic for two reasons. One is it's very aggressive. People feel the energy that you're putting forward in that. They feel the threat, but they don't feel like there's any support behind it. That when they hear that language, they don't feel that you care. In fact, they feel attacked and they feel resentful and they will feel unsafe in whatever is being said. This will create a barrier where they will feel like they cannot talk to you about whatever the issue is, whatever the problem is, because there may be a real problem, but they don't feel they can trust you to share their thoughts about it or offer solutions because they don't trust that you're going to share that, going to give them the kind of support they need. Are you just going to turn around and say something else that's snarky, that's passive aggressive? They may not say anything as a result. So you're disengaging your employees directly, but you're also creating this situation where they're not going to feel they can trust you to come to you with issues. They will avoid telling you things directly to avoid this language. And you may not be saying it directly to them. If you're saying it about one of their colleagues, they will get the same message. They will learn the same behavior, because if they're going to be looking and saying, if this is what you're saying about that other person, what are you saying about me? A better situation, instead of passive-aggressive comes from a place of insecurity, where you don't feel confident communicating bad news to another person. And so it's easier for you to suggest this thing and hope that they will correct this on their own out of some social obligation. A healthier approach, a more successful approach, is learning how to communicate information to other people and being okay with a bit of discomfort when you're communicating bad news. Hey, this is a difficult situation. Something's hasn't gone the way we wanted to, and we need to improve behavior. That can be a difficult message for people to communicate if you're not used to communicating bad messages. So take some time to learn how to be comfortable communicating and staying with possibly bad information. And being willing to be supportive in those moments, to not address the problem at the other person, but rather at the issue. And when your employees feel like you're looking at the solution, not looking at them as being a problem, they're more likely to feel supported in that moment, but they're more likely to also feel like they can come forward with a creative solution or ideas of where things can be better. and also be open to learning for the next time. So these are 7 areas of leadership you want to avoid. 1, focusing only on weaknesses. 2, neglecting any kind of professional development. 3, being unapproachable. 4, being uninvolved with the work, or on the opposite side, 5, being too involved, too engaged, micromanaging the work. 6, being pessimistic or bringing a lot of negative energy into the workplace. Or 7, using passive-aggressive language, not addressing the issues straight up, but trying to guilt somebody into doing the right thing. If you're doing any of these 7 things, you risk undermining the trust your employees have, you risk disengaging your team, and at the worst, creating a toxic environment where employees will not feel safe and they will be wanting to leave your team for somewhere better. Now, I know you can do a better job, and I offer this as a warning, but also an opportunity. If any of these feel familiar, think about what you could be doing differently. There is better ways. And that brings to the close of my session today. I see there's a couple of people on the call. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, there should be a way to raise your hand in the LinkedIn if you have a question, and then I can move you into the discussion. I'll give you a moment for that. Okay, great. So that brings to the end of this week's session on leadership impact. My name is Matthew Devine. If you have any questions you want to carry on this conversation, please send me a direct message and we can get on a call. Until next time, let's get back to work.